Let me just say this. I'm 42. I'm not old by any means, but I'm definitely not young. Just experienced enough to know that I don't have it all figured out. But over the last 4 decades, I've learned a few things, mostly the hard way, of course. So today, this is 42. Hello everybody, welcome back to Mostly Me, Occasionally Wise. I'm Brian, and today's episode is going to be a simple one. There are no movie rankings, no cultural breakdowns, just perspective and reflection. It's about what 42 years on this earth has taught me so far. And it's not because I've mastered life, far from mastering life, but it's because I've lived long enough to mess up, adjust, and grow. So with that said, let's just get into it. Over the years, times have changed. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Best time to be alive, in my opinion. There were no smartphones, no social media, no constant notifications. If someone called your house and you missed it, you missed it. If you wanted to talk to a friend, you got on your bike and rode to their house. Entertainment wasn't instant. That's right, I said it. Entertainment wasn't even instant. You had to wait for it, and somehow that waiting built a whole lot of patience. And now everything in this world is immediate. Information, opinions, access, outrage. The world didn't just speed up, it accelerated. And at 42, you realize a couple of things. You can't fight change. That's a losing battle. You're going to lose 100% of the time. And secondly, you realize that technology doesn't have to be the enemy. I get it's overwhelming. I get it's frustrating. I get that it's intimidating because there's so much to take in when it comes to technology. But here's the best advice I can give you if you're struggling in that area. Don't let it intimidate you. Don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it, frustrate you. There are a lot of useful tools that technology provides. And you see it a lot as a parent. You see it a lot as someone who's a nerd who works on a computer consistently or plays video games. You see all the amazing things that technology can provide. Learn about those things. You don't have to learn about everything. Just learn about the ways that technology has been awesome in this day and age. So, speaking of time moves faster than you think. In your 20s, even maybe in your early 30s, you think a year takes forever. And at that age, yes, I felt that way. But at 42, you blink and it's Christmas time. You blink and your kids are getting taller, they're getting smarter, they're starting kindergarten, they're starting junior high, high school, even starting college. You blink and your parents look older. And you realize that time isn't moving faster, it's the fact that you're becoming more aware of it. And that awareness it changes how you show up. And you start to become present on purpose because you understand something now. And this is heartbreaking to say, especially as a parent. Moments don't wait. They fly by so quickly. Man, that was tough to say. I'm gonna admit that it breaks my heart. So time isn't moving faster. It really isn't. You're just aware of it. And that's not a bad thing. Just cherish the moments that you've got. Opinions get quieter over the years. In your 20s, early 30s, you feel like you have to defend everything. You have to argue everything. You have to be right 100% of the time. And at 42, you start to care less what people think because you want more peace. You realize peace becomes more valuable than proving a point. You don't need to win every debate. You don't need to respond to everything. Silence becomes strength, and that's growth. And it's funny, we're talking about opinions because my 13-year-old, opinions are huge in his life right now because he's a teenager. And we have talks quite often about outside noise and how it shouldn't affect who you are and how you act about things. Your opinion about you matters the most. And the opinions from your loved ones should matter. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you have the final say-so. Don't let the outside noise affect you. And granted, being 42, opinions have always been something I've struggled with because I'm a people pleaser. But, after reaching out and talking with friends and being in counseling and, talking to loved ones, I've realized, hey, if you're not in my circle, then your opinion doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And that may sound mean, but it's the truth. So, mentally, you are changing. And this one surprised me a little bit because I never really thought about it until recently. But mentally, you change. You do. You react less emotionally. You think more long term. Like, for example, I have been really fixated on retirement and Social Security. Yes, those things are years away. But I want to have a leg up in the game. I want to be on top of things because when I retire, I want to be able to live comfortably. I want to enjoy the rest of my time with my wife. I want to enjoy the rest of my time watching my kids grow up and, who knows, even being a grandpa, a great-grandpa. Just, I want to be comfortable. So those things are important to me right now. And it's crazy because when I was younger, that was the furthest thing from my mind. But, man, at 42, it really kind of sinks in. You realize you don't have to chase every opportunity. You filter what deserves your energy. And that's a big one because, you're not getting any younger. And you realize that your energy and your, what's the word I'm looking for? Ability to pay attention. And it may just be a guy thing, but it decreases a lot. And it's something you want to focus on more is, okay, does this really require a lot of effort and energy, or should I focus more on this stuff? You realize your confidence becomes quieter. It's not loud, but it's just a constant. And I've noticed that. I'm confident in a lot of ways, but I don't have to project it. You realize that not every thought needs to be spoken. Now, if you're outspoken, I can't help you in that area, but if you're not outspoken, that's not a bad thing. You realize that not every argument needs to be won. You're not becoming someone new. You're simply just becoming more aware, and awareness changes everything. My next point, next thing I've learned over the last 42 years is health matters. In your 20s and even in your early 30s, you bounce back from a lot of things. But in your 40s, you start to plan recovery. And it's funny to think about. You stretch before workouts. You realize that sleep matters. You realize that food matters. Stress starts to show up physically. Your body keeps score. It really, really does. And at 42, you stop abusing your energy. You start protecting it. Because success doesn't feel successful if your body feels exhausted. And really, really had to focus in on this over the last couple of years because, we adopted our boys, and I've realized I want to be around as long as I can be for our kids, for my wife, for my friends, for my family. And I can't do that unless I change some things as far as my health is concerned. It's no longer about looking good. Yeah, those things are great. You want to look good, but to me, it's not necessarily all about that. It's about feeling better. It's about longevity. You know, and to me, that's important because as a parent, like I said, you want to be around as long as you can be. Over the years, you realize that relationships matter more than resumes. Yes, you've built your career at this point. You're succeeding, and when you're younger, you have ambition, but at 42, you realize something. Who sits at your table matters more than anything else that's on your resume. Your circle gets smaller, but stronger. You tend to stop chasing crowds, but start protecting connections. And that's not lost, it's clarity. Like, I am very much one that I don't have a whole lot of friends. And I'm okay with that. I've always been that way, though. I value the term relationship. That word means a lot to me because I didn't have it a whole lot growing up. And when I was out on my own, I realized that having people you can trust and rely on matter most than popularity. And to be honest with you, I have a handful of close friends. I have, my family. They're not relatively big families, and that's awesome because to me, popularity has always been something that's kind of overwhelming because it's hard to keep up with everybody, and it's kind of tough. And at 42 years old, you just don't have it in you anymore. So you realize, okay, maybe I need to kind of start, picking out the weeds, so to speak. And then my next point. I used to think by 40, I would have everything locked in. Total clarity, total certainty, and that's not how it works. At 42 years old, I am still learning. I'm still pivoting, I'm still adjusting, I'm still becoming, and that's okay, because growth doesn't have to stop. And I've realized this topic more than anything when we adopted our boys and when it came to my daughter being in college. I don't have it all figured out, nor do I know everything. That was a shock to my pride when I first admitted that. But the more I became more comfortable with it, the easier things became. It shows to your kids and your friends and your family that you're human. You don't know everything. You're just a human being, just like they are. Granted, there's a lot of ways to get the information you want and try to figure it out, but you don't always have to, and that's not a bad thing. And letting that go, that's freedom. My next point is a big one. Ask for help. This one took maturity because it's something I still struggle with a little bit. When you're younger, asking for help feels like weakness. It really does. And you think strength means handling everything alone, but it doesn't. Strength is saying, I could use advice, I need support, isolation is heavy. And so, it took me a very long time to realize this. It took me going to counseling. It took me trusting people. It took lowering my guard. I get asking for help is not easy. But if you're in that phase where you feel like you have to be strong consistently and not show emotion and all these other things, if you have kids, you are showing them what not to do. And that's, as a parent, that breaks your heart because when you realize that, you're like, okay, I don't want my kids to grow up and be this rock that doesn't show emotion. You want your kids to be human. You want your kids to know that, hey, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to lean on somebody because to survive and make it in this world, all of those things are important. My next point. It's okay to say no. And this is another one that I struggled with over the years because I am a big people pleaser. And I have always been that way. I hate making people upset. And so to avoid that, I give them whatever they wanted. And I've realized something at my age, that every yes costs something. It costs time, it costs energy, it costs focus. And if you say yes to everything, you're slowly saying no to yourself. It's funny that I'm talking about this because this is something I'm talking to my daughter about. Her mom and I are divorced, and when she comes to town, she's torn on who to come spend time with because she doesn't want to make anybody mad. And when that happens, she reaches out to me and we talk, and I'm simply just telling her, hey, it's okay. It's okay to tell me, hey, I can't make it over this weekend. I'm sorry. And then you just move about going on with your plans. Yeah, I may be disappointed. I'm going to miss you. But at the end of the day, you're my daughter. I love you and I care about you, and I'm always going to be here. And I'm trying to get that into her mind at this age, because once she gets married and she has kids, you're going to have to say no. I'm going to be honest with you, and if my family's listening, I apologize. It's kind of like I'm sorry, but not sorry. There are times when we've had family functions that I have just not wanted to do it. I have not wanted to people, and I have said no. Now, granted, I probably made an excuse, which I shouldn't have. I should have just been honest with you, but yeah, I just didn't want to do it. And it doesn't make me look like a bad person. It's just me taking care of myself. And it's really honestly okay to say no, especially at this age. One more thing. It's not too late. It really isn't. 42 is such a young age. Yeah, I know I've got a kid that tells me, that I walked with the dinosaurs and I've hung out with Moses, but it's not too late. Starting something new at 42 feels risky. You wonder if you're late to the party. You wonder if you should have started early. And yeah, in some ways you probably should have. But waiting doesn't make fear smaller. It makes the regret so much bigger. So take risk. I'm starting a new podcast. I'm learning how to edit. I'm learning how, I'm constantly learning coding languages because those are things I'm interested in now. Don't think just because you're older that it's too late to take risk. It kind of makes life fun and exciting. Yeah, you may fail, but with that failure, there comes success. There's still a lot in the tank. Maybe not reckless energy, but steady energy. You've experienced enough in life to see patterns, and you're still young enough to change them. You're not late to the party, You're just, to be honest with you, just showing up at the right time. So take risk. Go out, experience life. Life has so much to offer, yes, even at our age. So with that said, this is 42. It's not perfect. It's not finished. It's not old. It's just being mentally clearer. It's physically more aware, confident enough to say no, humble enough to ask for help, and hopeful enough to know that there's still more ahead. Because if there's breath in your lungs, there's still room to grow. And know that, if your life has been tough, I get it. I've had a rough life. But not everything is bad on the other side. There's some truth to the grass is always greener on the other side. And I've learned to acknowledge that and appreciate it. So with that said, this is mostly me, occasionally wise. Thank you guys for listening. It means a whole lot for you to be here. Remember to stay mostly you and occasionally wise.